What I discovered is that there's a level above mindset, which I call frame, which is like the frequency of you. And the frequency of you creates your mindset. So what I've discovered is that the fastest way to hit the target isn't by chasing action constantly. It's by aligning with the version of you that knows how to hit the target. So I spend most of my time coaching, getting the client into alignment, because when their frame gets in alignment, it generates an aligned mindset, at which time they get naturally inspired action and flow to hit the targets.
Welcome to the House of Jermar podcast, where wellness starts within. The House of Jermar is a lifestyle brand empowering women to live all in through interior design and personal wellness. We are a destination for women ready to reimagine what is possible in their homes and lives and then create it. We are honored to have you join us on our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. I am your host, Jean Collins, and I invite you to become inspired by this week's guest. Welcome to the House of Jermar podcast, where wellness starts within. I'm your host, Jean Collins, and today's guest, Jason Drees. I am so excited to talk to him. I read a ton of books, everybody, but his book, I have to say, is one of the best books I have read in a year. So he is the CEO of Jason Drees Consulting, and he's the author of Do the Impossible. And one of the things I really like about him, he's an incredible entrepreneur, but he also calls himself an alignment coach. And that is something that you don't normally hear. So I am so excited Jason's willing to make some time, coming all the way from Austin, Texas. So Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jean, for the invitation. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you for being here. So I always love to start out with just a little bit of background about you personally and how you got to be an author, an entrepreneur, and running this huge coaching business, which you have, because most of us don't start out there. Our paths are not linear. And I think we have the ability as public figures to impact people and influence them and empower them to try different things. So if you would mind, a little high level about how you got here.
So let's see. I'm 51 years old. I started in technology sales, was in technology sales for about 14 years. Started a company on the side with my sales engineer, hired a Tony Robbins coach to help me run that company. The Tony Robbins coach asked me, have you ever thought about becoming a coach? That question changed my life. 6 months later, I left tech, was in Tony Robbins coach training program, worked there for 3.5 years, evolved my own coaching methodology beyond Tony Robbins. I built my own coaching company. And over the past, I've been coaching professionally for 12 years now. And in the process of the past 12 years is where I discovered this new model of coaching, which I call alignment coaching.
Yes. So let's talk about alignment coaching. What does that mean? Because you don't hear that. You hear life coach, mindset coach, empowerment coach, wellness coach. Alignment coach is the first one. So what does that actually mean? And then we're going to dig into your book.
Yeah, well, technically, I grew up as a performance coach, right? A Tony Robbins coach, performance coach, mindset coach. They're called performance coaches, results-based coaches. And they're strictly focused on the results. That's the primary thing, right? And my alignment coaching is as well. The big difference is how you get there, right? So for example, the simple way to think about it is like the results you get come from the actions you take.
Yep.
The actions you take come from your mindset.
Yep.
Right? And we know this. Our brain knows that the results are supposed to come from the action. So we end up chasing action constantly. We think missing action is actually the problem, but the actions you take are limited to the mindset that you're in. So what a results-based coach does is like, what's the results you want? What is all the action you can take? And they literally do like forced accountability to take all of this massive action. Right. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. It's very masculine. It's very hard for a lot of women to use those type of coaches because it's so masculine and it drives you straight into grinding constantly. What I discovered is that there's a level above mindset, which I call frame, which is like the frequency of you. And the frequency of you creates your mindset. So what I've discovered is that the fastest way to hit the target isn't by chasing action constantly. It's by aligning with the version of you that knows how to hit the target. So I spend most of my time coaching, getting the client into alignment, because when their frame gets in alignment, it generates an aligned mindset, at which time they get naturally inspired action and flow to hit the targets.
Right. Which is really fascinating. It's like you literally describe it in your book and picture it in your book as this thing that's out bigger than you. It's
Yeah.
like as if you are a picture.
It is, yes.
It's so you do a beautiful job of talking about framing. And, I hear the word framing a lot from a reframe perspective, from mindset coaching and mindset training. A lot of what we do is reframing how you're thinking about something.
Yes.
But your concept of framing is a little bit different because it's not just changing how you think about something, it's getting in alignment, as you say. So I want to talk about this, and I wrote this down because I didn't want to get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about the distinction between mindset and frame is awareness. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, yeah, the book's a couple years old, so everything's evolved so much in there. But basically, mindset is your brain.
Yep.
Frame is all of you.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the awareness is technically what's actually happening with alignment coaching is that we're using higher level states of consciousness to shift our mindset into alignment. That's really what's happening. I don't tell everybody that, but that's actually what's happening. And the big contrast between this style of coaching and the other style of coaching is, the other style of coaching focuses on forcing the action.
Right.
What we do is we focus on removing the obstacles that are in the way.
Sure. So is it sort of some form of visualization? Like, who really are you? What do you really want to be? And trying to start there as opposed to the obstacles that are preventing you from getting where you want to go.
That's a good question. I generally don't start with the word visualization because visualization comes from the mind. So that's the mindset level.
Yeah.
The frame level is a level above that. It's almost like sensing. Like the frame level is basically like, you're sitting in your car, you're looking forward, and that person's looking at you, right? You're not using one of your five senses. Yeah. And if you want, I can tell you the story about how I discovered frame shifting, and that will help you understand. So in 2020, Jason Drees coaching was going great, but Jason Drees coaching was just me. I was just a coach. I started working with Brandon Turner, and I added 5 clients per month, every single month. So I get to August, I've got 65 personal clients. It was going great. It was making great money. And then Brandon Turner asked me to be on the Bigger Pockets podcast. So I said, okay, let's do that. And then literally the next month, I had 192 people book in an intro coaching session. 192. And I'm like,
it's a lot of people.
A lot of people. Yeah. So the business went from me to me and 3 coaches, a salesperson, and an ops admin in like 30 days.
Wow.
So it was like August 1st, I had everything under control, but all of a sudden October, I'm getting overwhelmed. And then things were going so with Brandon. We launched my first group coaching program called the Mindset Academy, which was a 6-week program with 4 calls a week, 4 hours a week, the first week in November. So I was coaching 65 clients. I was completely overwhelmed. Like I was a level of overwhelm I've never felt before. And every day I'm just thinking, don't screw it up. Don't screw it up because money was just rolling in. And I'm sitting there going, I'm so overwhelmed. I can barely even function. And then my brain had this like moment, and these moments are where I get all this content from. So I had this moment where I realized if you took Jason from 10 years ago and brought him to August 1st, he would have been completely overwhelmed. So that told me there's a Jason in the future who, if that Jason from the future came to November 15th, say, for example, he could look at everything and go, I got this. And I thought about that for a second, and all of a sudden my stress went away. My doubt went away. My confidence increased. I felt lighter, and I didn't know what happened. I was like, what was that? And I didn't know what was happening. So 2 hours later, I was overwhelmed again. So I did it again. What did I do? I thought about a future version of me that knew what to do. And I literally did that 5 or 6 times a day. And that's when I first started figuring out what frame shifting was. Coincidentally, my business 10x'd in 2020, and 70% of that revenue was in Q4.
That is amazing. Okay, that example, first of all, like kudos to you, right? Those of us in the world of manifestation, like you created that, good for you. But that example makes it so clear because in the book, you have all these exercises, right? About getting into alignment, and then how do you integrate them by repeating and then shifting your frame and really thinking about, as you say in the book, and now it totally makes sense to me, you're like, can you see yourself being someone who has that and can do that and has those traits and has accomplished what you want to accomplish? So your example is perfect.
And what's actually happening is that normally we make decisions from our past self because our mindset comes from the past. So when we're thinking, we're making our decision from our past self. This process allows you to make decisions from your future self.
So fascinating. And you have this whole repeat after me.
Yeah.
Which in the beginning, as you're reading the book, it's like you literally say, and you're funny. You're really funny in your book, by the way. You're kind of like, I tell you to say these things out loud, and then you're like, you're not doing it. I know you're not doing it. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm sitting here. I'm not reading this out loud by myself. But you're very funny. You're kind of like knowing and understanding human behavior and calling us out on how we're like kind of stepping into the process, but not like all into the process. So where did you decide this concept of repeat after me was going to help you get into the right frame that you needed in order to do the frame shifting?
Well, the repeat after me statements is the foundation of all of this. And it's not an affirmation. The specific language syntax I use is a belief changing statement. Mm-hmm. In 2014, I was working for Tony Robbins as a coach. The startup company I had with my friend failed, and we got sued by an investor. So I've got 2 small children struggling to make money at $30 an hour, $30 a half hour, while I'm being sued by a millionaire, and I'm getting hit with requests. And I was literally just like having panic attacks while I'm trying to be this peak state Tony Robbins coach on every call. I get an email from my attorney and have a panic attack. And I'm just like, shit, what are we going to do? Because he and I were both broke.
Yeah.
We both had 2 small children. So I wrote down on a piece of paper, every time Terry calls, it's bad news. Because that's what I was feeling. Terry's my attorney. And I was like, that's terrible. And he's on my side. And I hate feeling this way. And I said, yes, that's mine. I hate it. And I crossed it out. And when I crossed it out, I had a moment and something happened. And it was like, holy shit, 80% of what I was feeling just disappeared. And that's what I realized. And actually I went on, I wish I still had that journal because it took me like 3 pages of repeat after me's to clean up all the stuff from Tony Robbins. But basically I realized in that moment is that you can change anything inside of you. A belief is inside of you, and all you have to do is take ownership of it. So I started testing it with my Tony Robbins clients. Repeat after me. I take full ownership of my life. This old belief, I let it go. And I literally was like architecting clients' mindsets one belief at a time over the past, 10 years. And then I finally got to the point where framing is, because the old way was I was trying to fix a misaligned mindset by changing belief after belief. With framing, you're just moving to the mindset that's already aligned, the frame that's already aligned.
Right.
But the repeat after me is the foundation of all of it.
It's so fascinating. And just so everybody knows, at the end of your book, you have this, like all these alignment exercises of all these repeat after me's on almost every subject you could possibly think about, or blocks that are blocking us from achieving what we want.
I've had people at my live events come, because I'll sneak some of them in.
Yeah.
Especially the beliefs around not good enough, like those beliefs. And they'll walk out and they'll be like, I don't know what happened, but my life feels different. Like, because if they use the language, because basically I'm trying to clean up I'm trying to re-architect their mindset so it works this way.
Right.
That's what all those repeat after me is like putting your mindset into the syntax where it will work that way, because whatever your beliefs are is your reality, but most of us don't realize that we can change all of that. So most people are stuck with their default old programming.
So it seems to me, as an outside person, when I read your book and I've read up about your coaching, it seems like if you can get it, it's like a faster path.
Yes.
Is that true? Would you say that?
Yeah, it's a very high frequency book. A lot of people don't get it. But some people are like, oh, it's just basic. I'm like, well, those that get it are like, wow.
Yeah.
I get a lot of people like, I read your book 7 times. It's like, because it's the real concepts is of do the impossible is really like you have unlimited potential.
Yeah.
So basically the foundation of all my coaching focuses on 2 beliefs, is that you're unlimited and there's nothing you can't do.
Okay.
So if a client says anything to me that contradicts those 2, I know they're in resistance.
Yes, of course. How'd you come up with the do the impossible phrase and the title of the book?
It just came up out of nowhere. It was literally, what are we going to call it? And it just like popped into my head. Like it was just literally, there was not a lot of thought there. I wish it was a more fantastic story, but it was just flow.
It was just there. Yeah. Well, and you try to get people to change their, I don't even know what the right word is, mindset frame around impossible, because impossible feels heavy to me. Impossible feels heavy. And so you change it to an uncommon target. Yeah. That's kind of cool.
Uncommon or unlikely. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Which goes back to your whole point of that you can do anything. It's just uncommon. Just because it's uncommon doesn't mean that you can't do it. And that's why someone had referred your book to me because of that. approach that you have about impossible. And just, it's not that it's impossible, it's just uncommon, but who's to say you can't do the uncommon?
Yeah. And we don't realize that we're creating our own reality. Like our reality is a match to our frequency.
Right.
Because we live in an attraction-based universe, right? And and the law of attraction, which is so cliche, it's not Amazon showing up with packages. The law of attraction starts with new thought patterns. So when I'm coaching clients and they shift frames, all of a sudden they start thinking differently, because as the client, if we go back to my model of results come from actions, action comes from mindset, mindset comes from frame. Every person who's not hitting their target thinks it's an action problem.
Right.
But if you don't know what to do, you're in a frame that doesn't know what to do. So
Right.
you can search for years and you're never going to find it. It's like shifting into that next version. You need to become the version that knows the answer. And that's how you accelerate. Yeah.
Then you move much more quickly.
Yes.
So for people who are listening, who's the right person to come to seek out your level of coaching, and what levels of coaching do you offer to people if they're interested in such a concept?
Good question. Now, the principles that we're talking about apply to everybody in every subject. There's only one methodology, right? It's alignment with the target, right? Now, I'd say 80% of our clients, 90% of our clients are entrepreneurs or want to be. That's our audience right there. And a lot of coaches out there can help you get started. A lot. There's so many coaches in the world. But what we do is we can take wherever you're at and add you to another level. So a client comes in making $300,000, we'll get them over $1 million. They're making $1 million, we'll get them to 10 million. So we will accelerate everybody. And typically the higher they are, the faster they'll go. Although we do have people who come in at, they just have a W-2 job and they want to be an entrepreneur. We help those people too. But our sweet spot is really already successful people who know they're meant for more, but they're willing to do the effort. They're willing to invest in themselves, but something's missing.
Right. They just can't get there.
Can't get there.
Can't figure it out.
Yeah, that's why Brandon Turner, I don't know if you know Brandon Turner, but he coached with me for 7 years, right?
Yeah.
When I started coaching him, he was an employee of Bigger Pockets. Now he's got $1 billion in assets under management,
Amazing.
Yeah.
So do you also help people who, let's say, feel lost and they might be successful in where they are, but they feel like maybe this isn't it. This isn't my purpose. This isn't my calling. This just isn't me. And I can't figure out what me is.
Yes. 100%. So getting people unstuck, helping them find their path. Most people come to us because they want to make more money, also increase leverage. Most of our clients are after freedom, right? Freedom of time, freedom of money.
Sure.
But what always happens with every client, regardless if they're coming in to find their path or make more money, is this model balances you out everywhere, because the part that's out of alignment will come up. So, and I'll have clients who will sign up to make more money and grow their business, but the thing that's out of alignment is their relationship with themselves.
Interesting.
So 3 months of coaching, unwinding that, and all of a sudden their business starts growing without taking any different action in the business.
That's fascinating. And you offer different types of coaching. Can you talk about kind of like the different ways that people can engage with your company?
Yeah, I do. Primarily, it's one-on-one coaching. We do a group coaching program called Mindset Academy.
Yep.
There's a call every single week. I have 8 coaches on my team. So all of them are trained in this stuff and they all have their own specializations as well. But it's primarily one-on-one coaching and live events.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You going to write another book?
Yeah. Well, I actually have a second book that's written and not published that's kind of stuck on, it was on financial mindset, but the new book is in my head. I'm trying to get it out this year. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. You're practicing your own framing to help flow and make the book come out of you, right?
Yes. And I'm going through some of my own coaching, which is shifting the book as well, because I thought it was really going to be, this is how to do alignment coaching, and this is how to do frame shifting. But I really think this next book is more of like my inspirational story that incorporates how to do that.
Yeah, it evolves. I like that.
Because I've been through a lot. I've had multiple divorces. I've had deaths in my family. I've been through just a lot of life.
That makes you relatable. It makes it so that you're not this perfect icon who seems like he's figured it all out. Yeah,
I was reading this astrology app and it said, you have unfortunately this thing here, and it means like most of your lessons come from massive pain. I'm like, well, that's great. And I look back in my life and
You're like, thanks. Okay. Thanks. Yep. It's not happening to me. It's happening for me. Yep. Okay. I can relate to that. I understand how that works. Wow.
Yeah.
So you talk about events. What type of events do you do?
Well, given that the real estate audience hasn't had much money the past couple of years, we haven't been doing the big events like we had before. but they're typically 2 days. Our next one's going to be late March or April in Austin. And it's basically, this one's going to be like Do the Impossible Live, because we've done lots of different themes, but this event is going back to the foundation of just like unlocking your full potential so that you can just play at the level you want. Because most people are playing at like 70 to 80% of their potential.
Yeah.
Because when they try to aim at 100%, they get so overwhelmed, they don't know what to do. So, but when you start playing at a much higher level and you're open to the growth that comes with it, we unlock you.
Right.
Yeah.
Does that make you like, I'm listening to you talk about it and I'm like, that gives me anxiety. Like the responsibility of feeling like you're going to take this whole large crowd and you're going to actually get them to understand how to do this. Does that give you anxiety or no?
No, I realized long ago that I don't control who gets it and I don't control who grows. I only can control myself being there and doing everything I can. These events are also extremely difficult to plan. Like if you could see behind the scenes, my planning process for these events is a nightmare because a vast majority of my content, especially when I'm speaking to live audience, is like, I don't know how else to describe it besides I'm channeling it. It's just responsive flow, like flow. Yeah. And that flow is based on who's in the room. So who's in the room changes the theme of the event. And I can't plan for that.
Yes, you're going to respond to them and their energy.
My magic is really understanding the energy of the audience and then flowing content that matches it. Like all the time, I also do an elite client group where we do have a call every single week. And everybody's, most of the time is like, I didn't know I needed to hear that today, but it's exactly what I needed. I get that a lot.
That should make you feel good.
Yeah, I'm a channel for this information. I don't know how I got it or where it comes from, but it just flows through me. So, and it all comes from coaching.
Do you feel like you found your flow? Like this is it? This is your purpose? Or do you feel like, this is great, but there might be something else?
No, this is it.
This is it.
Clear.
You're 100% in it. This is it.
Yeah. In 2012, when my Tony Robbins coach asked me, have you ever thought about becoming a coach? And I had a W-2 job in tech at the time. I felt like I got struck by lightning. Like it was like that. Boom.
Wow.
Okay, that's what I'm going to do with my life. Yeah,
that's what I'm going to do. And you just pivot. No fear. You just pivot.
No fear, but it was hard. Financial challenges, a lot of difficulties. It was not easy. We were on food assistant from the state at one point.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not all sunshine and roses once you get to the top.
My family's like, what are you doing? You had a good paying temp job. Why do you have to chase this coaching thing? My brother-in-law was like, do I need to raise your kids for you? Which he never apologized for. And then when I made like 5 times what he made, he didn't in 1 year. He didn't say anything.
Yeah. Did your friends change? Your inner circle have to change when you went from having a real job to being an entrepreneur and being a coach, which is a little more on the woo-woo side?
Yeah, well, I moved so much. Like I grew up in Southern California and was in Northern California. So for like the past 20 years, most of my friends have always been my work peers.
Yeah.
So, but once I got into the Tony Robbins environment like a decade ago, that kind of changed the peer group permanently too.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. You need to be around people that can relate and have similar vibes, which is sometimes one of the benefits that people find in engaging in different coaching programs is they get connected with other like-minded people that can help them on their journey so they don't feel quite so alone. So what's on your bucket list personally, professionally?
Well, I did a bucket list trip 2 years ago. Personally, I love off-roading.
Okay.
I love California and Baja California. So I've always wanted to drive from San Diego to Cabo. So what I did, this was in actually summer of 23, I took my 2 oldest boys and we took my side-by-side and we went off-roading from the border all the way to Cabo over 8 days with a group.
Wow. Ooh, that's an experience.
It was so much fun. So my bucket list now is I want to race the Baja 1000. My big bucket list is I want to chase sunsets for a year around the world.
Oh, that's a good one. That's like specific but yet broad.
Yes.
Yes.
And then professionally, I want to get my next book out. I want to get to the point where I only do what I love.
Ooh.
Right now I'm doing a lot of business stuff that I'd rather someone else do.
Yeah.
So that part I'd rather get to where I'm just doing content, coaching and talking. That's what I'd love to do.
That's it. Right.
And then create Jason Drees coach training so that we can start to evolve coaching globally with this new methodology. So start to train more coaches.
Yes. Do you feel, which is interesting because one of the other things I was going to ask you that I like to ask people is, do you feel like you have balance? Because sometimes as an entrepreneur, as you're growing these businesses and you have all these ideas, it's really hard to have balance in life.
How do you define balance?
It's whatever it is for you.
I don't know. I don't fall over when I walk,
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
I just go all in all the time. That's just my nature.
Yeah.
So I go all in, and then when it's too much, I stop. So
Okay.
I get balance where I need to, and I'm finishing a divorce right now for my partner of 16 years that went over the past 6 months. So that was 7 months. That was a big disruption,
Big. Yes.
radically big disruption. So and coincidentally, it's created the personal growth in me that I needed to get to the next level. I see that now. I would say my 50th year, I was hoping it was better, but it was literally one of the most toughest years of my life.
Yes.
But yeah, so balance is, I'm really starting to eat my own dog food a lot more, because everybody's like, Jason, you must be a master of all this. I'm like, hey, I'm a human too, right? I wish all my sit works on me as well it does other people, but it doesn't work that way,
Yeah. Do you have your own coach?
Oh, lots of coaches.
You do?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
use the coaches on my team. I use other coaches. Yeah, I'm talking to coaches all the time.
Yeah.
My challenge is that the content is just in a never-ending evolution, and what worked last week may not work this week.
Interesting.
I actually believe I'm constantly going to higher and higher frequencies, so the tools start to change.
Yeah.
Now I enjoy it, and if you ask me about it, I'll talk forever because it's the most exciting thing for me.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to find a much better balance recently of really allowing myself to just sit in the aligned frame versus needlessly chase action. Because for the longest time, when because my business revenue is down a lot over the past couple of years because of the real estate industry being hit so hard, that I would just be chasing action constantly to kind of make revenue, and it would not be getting me anywhere.
Yeah.
So in December, I'm like, stop all that extra. I literally cut 30% of the stuff I was doing. I just literally stopped it. Stopped it completely, and my revenue grew 30% in December because of that.
Now, why do you think that is?
Because I got into an aligned frame.
Okay.
Because the other way, I was caught in the pattern of thinking action was the problem. So I was chasing all the action instead of being in an aligned frame. Because so what is an aligned frame, right? So that's probably a good question. An aligned frame means you're 100% certain you can hit the target.
Yeah.
Now, if you're 95% certain, or actually think of it like this. If you're 99% certain, it sounds like it's a good idea to start taking action. But if you're aiming at a target and your target's off 1%, you'll never hit the target.
Mm-hmm.
So the average entrepreneur, they're like, oh, I believe like 70% or 50% I could do it. And that's like saying, hey, Gene, come visit me in Austin, Texas. So if you're 70% certain you can hit the target, I give you an address to visit me that's 70% right.
Right. How am I ever going to find it? Right.
How you can find you. And,
Yeah.
and when you get lost, do you keep driving to feel better? No, you stop and get direction. But
Yes.
as entrepreneurs, we don't. We just take more action because we'd rather take action than just sitting there. So we're
Correct.
literally taking action pointed in the wrong direction.
Yes. Well, and it also, as I'm hearing you say, you have to have you believe 100% in the target. And I feel as an entrepreneur, there is always this level of self-doubt about what you're doing. I feel like it's innate in what we do. There's doubt. Is anyone going to want the product? Does anyone care what I have to say? Can I be successful at this? Like all these doubtful things. So I find it such an interesting concept to be in total alignment with what that target is and really being 100% sure or feeling 100% that you can do it. That feels hard.
And the core thing that we do is, I'd say 99% of our clients are trying to hit what I call an unknown target, something they've never done before. Known is what you've done before. So 99% of our clients are trying to do something they've never done before. And that's where it matters most to create 100% certainty. And it's also the most difficult place to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Now, you can also look at what level the doubt is coming from, right? Because you can say, and this is kind of the secret of how we actually help clients create alignment with a target they don't know how to hit, is that, let's say at the micro level, the micro frame, what actions are you going to take over the next 2 months that's going to work? You don't know. But at a global macro frame, you can make a decision that says, I'm going to figure out how to hit this target because I'm not going to stop until I do. And that decision is what holds the global aligned frame.
Yeah.
And allows doubt at the micro level, because the global frame is what the law of attraction responds to. So when you start to hold that aligned frame, the mindset will start to show up with new thoughts and ideas.
Interesting.
Yes.
Do your clients focus, and I'm literally probing for my own personal knowledge because I'm thinking of all these things as you're talking. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So do you encourage people to focus on one target, one frame at a time?
Well, it depends. There's lots of frames within there, but it's like a lot of times it's focus on the goal you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And number one, we usually got to make that goal higher because 98% of the clients I meet, the goals aren't high enough.
Right.
So, and if you know what alignment is, if you can hit any target you align with, that's why you might as well aim at an impossible target.
Sure. Yes. That makes sense. I get that.
So like, let's say you want this target and you're 80% certain you can do it. How do you move to an aligned frame? Like, okay, well, because the aligned frame is 100% certain. Now, a lot of times our brain was going to think, I'm going to have to go construct alignment, right? That's what we think. We've got to go make it happen. But it's actually backwards. It's a removal game. Because what's actually causing that doubt, which is the 20% doubt, which is causing the 80% certainty has 20% doubt. That 20% doubt is the past reference in your mindset that's contradicting what you're doing right now, which is the limiting belief. So if you remove, so the way to get that to 100% isn't to go make it 100%, it's just to remove the 20% and then it becomes 100%. And a lot of this really comes down to internal language and how you're describing your own present reality.
Yeah.
Because if you say, I'm going to go hit an impossible target, that's in the future. If you say, I know how to hit an impossible target, that's in the future. If you say, I'm hitting an impossible target right now, that's still the future. If you said, I've hit an impossible target, that's the present.
Interesting.
We are creating at such a high frequency right now. I've lately been describing it as instant manifestation with a 48-hour response delivery time.
That's so appealing.
But yes, it is.
To an entrepreneur like me, I'm like, that's so appealing.
It 100% is.
My targets feel really large.
They are, and that's your intuition telling you you're supposed to be at that level, but you can't see it because the path is in the next version of you.
Right.
It's like a different frequency.
Yes.
So we almost have to like think about your present reality is, imagine a movie screen you're in right now. This is the present frame. And the challenge we all have is we're having reactions to the present frame.
Yes.
Finance problems, all this stuff. So we're constantly caught in this reaction to the present frame. And that's why the average person recreates that same frame over and over and over again, because they never get out of the reaction to it.
Right.
So you almost got to imagine like your present frame, this movie screen is here, but right past it is the movie screen where you know what to do. And it can be non-specific. Like, oh my God, I'm making so much money. I got so much free time. I've solved the problem. It's great. So you almost like ignore this reality while you put your attention on this one. And if you do that for 24 to 48 hours, you'll see like deals pop in. You'll see things pop in, new ideas. It's that fast. But our challenge is getting out of reaction of the old story that we don't have it. That's what stops everybody.
And I also would think focusing so much on the how, because you can't see the path necessarily. And that becomes a stumbling block to so many of us, is we don't see the path to how we can get there.
100%. And strategy is the byproduct of alignment. So technically, you want to wait until the strategy is 100% certain. If it's not 100% certain, you're not in alignment.
So cool. So what do you do? This is a totally different subject.
Sure.
What do you do for wellness to like take care of yourself, to make it so, you work all the time and yet you don't go crazy? Like, what are you doing to take care of your inner self?
I work out a lot. I'm in the best shape I've been in 20 years. Although Christmas, I kind of slacked off, and then I got that virus that everybody had for 2.5 weeks. And so I'm building myself back, but I do a lot of exercise, balance. I eat a lot of tacos, Mexican food. I love Mexican food. And I just make my life, I make myself have fun, just however I can. I try to travel as much as I can. And, I'm going to New Orleans next week to go have some fun over there. So
try to stay present. Do you journal? Do you meditate?
I don't really meditate.
Yeah.
I've never really slowed down that much. Journal. I'm like the least consistent person I've ever met. Because my brain is like, if you look at disc profile, my S&C is like 10. It's almost negative, basically.
Right.
Which makes me a great coach because I'm a change machine.
Yes.
But I'm constant, like in my own life, it's chaos sometimes. And I used to fight that for a long time.
Right.
And I know the Tony Robbins time management system, and I tried to implement it in my life for 5 years. And I finally realized it just doesn't work that way. And I realized and I don't even have written goals. and I haven't had for a long time. And I used to tell everybody, I don't use written goals. And my clients would be, what? And then my ex actually told me one time, she's like, it's not that you don't have written goals. Your goals are just new realities that haven't happened yet. So,
wow, that's big.
So this is going to happen, what I do on the day-to-day basis, because I've planned myself to the week and I've not planned at all. And it doesn't really make much difference on how much I accomplish.
That's fascinating.
I am finding my way into living my life how I want to get what I want, instead of thinking I need it to be a certain way. So and there's been times in this process of building this mindset that I've suffered from it, but I'm really trying to remove all of the prerequisites and conditions to creating the life I want, because that's what holds us back. We're like, okay, we want to be successful. Oh, and we found this person online. Oh my God, here's a person who has the same problems as me, and they just did it. Okay. Right. And they tell you what to do. They do these 5 things every day. You do 3 of them. So you start telling yourself you can't be successful because you're not doing all 5.
Right. Yes.
So it's the prerequisites that we create to success that stop our success. So I've been spending as much time as I can removing all of my prerequisites.
Ooh, that's work.
Yeah. Just to see what flows.
Yeah. Oh, but that's good, because you're kind of living proof of how you implement your approach and your strategies to life, and also a testament that it is continually evolving and growing and changing. And it's not mastering the techniques is not like the destination where you feel like you get there, because then, as you say, you feel like your frequencies are now evolving and growing and getting even higher and higher, and you're moving into a different realm for you that you weren't in before.
I grinded for so many years and never got there that I finally gave up. I'm like, that doesn't work. Let's see how this like, and I wouldn't believe frame shifting if I hadn't seen the results of it so many times.
Right.
With my clients. Because when I started coaching from a frame perspective about 4 years ago, my clients' results just like went through the roof. I was talking to one client. He owns a brokerage and it was struggling last year. Like, it was losing like $80,000 a month. It took me about 2 months of calls to get him out of reaction. Mm-hmm. We had 2.5 months of calls. Then we have another call. He's like, all right, I'm feeling great. Next call after that goes, I just found a new revenue stream for the business, which is a new 7-figure revenue stream. Wow. Call after that, I just made a $500,000 commission in the brokerage. Like that. Boom.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Like, it's when they get unlocked and open, it just starts flowing in. And right. my coaches are amazing, and they're hard, struggling to keep up with me because I'm constantly changing. But my magic is removing the subtle subconscious resistance that you don't know is there.
Yes.
Like, I remove that, and then you just start flowing. Yeah.
See, we all need you. Yes. I'll speak from personal experience. I know a lot. I try a lot. I do a lot, but wow. Yeah. I haven't figured that one out. I really haven't.
I think there's going to be a point in the near future where I'm going to make an AI bot of me coach that everyone can use. I'll just load in all my coaching calls for the past 4 years, 5 years, and all that, and have it talk just like me,
Well, and it's hard though, because there is only one you, and you're trying to scale and grow a business when there is only one of you. And then you have to spend a certain percentage of your time training others to be more like you. They can't be you, but training others to be like you. And that's very time consuming also.
Yeah. And there's also there's the new training to create. And keep in mind, my team was like me. What's nice about my team is they've all been coaching a decade. They were all my peers at Tony Robbins, right? So we all had to unlearn ourselves as results coaches into alignment coaches. So I haven't actually trained alignment coaches from the start yet. So I think that's going to make it a little bit different. But at the same time, everybody doesn't always need this type of coaching. There's times where they'll come to me, I'll coach them for 3 months, and then they need more tactical focus and accountability. Then they go to someone on my team.
Yes.
Because you get into weekly task management and like that, I suck as that type of coach.
You don't, and that's not the kind of work you want to do. I would think you want the big breakthroughs that have big impact with people that, by having that impact and getting in that frame and getting aligned, they made $1 million, right away.
Yeah. And that's why I've always done my Mindset Academy group coaching program so everyone else could access me too. Like I think I've got probably 200 hours of content in that program.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you can just go to my website, Mindset Academy. It's $197 a month. There's 4 1-hour calls a month, and you get access to the back library, which is 3 years of this stuff.
That's amazing. We'll put all of that in the show notes. All right. So before we go, because I've taken so much of your time, so you have a book, your book, obviously, I will link it here. I will talk about it. I will be promoting it on Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. But I always like to ask my guests if there's a book that impacted them personally, professionally, that they would recommend, because books change lives. So what book would you like to recommend?
I've got multiple.
That's good.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad started it all.
Yeah.
In 2001.
Yep.
And I think it made me crazy for 20 years, basically. Great book. And then Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, which I'm actually not religious, but it's not actually a religious book, but it talks about human potential.
Yes.
Also Journey of Souls of Michael Newton. That was also really good. Kind of helping me understand our infinite nature, because I didn't always, I'm going on a tangent here.
No, it's good. That's good.
Yeah.
It's important. You have to believe in something.
Got to believe in something. Yeah. Because for a long time, I thought when you're dead, you're dead. And then in 2005, my 21-year-old cousin died in a drunk driving accident in Mexico.
Ouch,
and I had all of these different things. And I talk a little bit about in the book. And I have a couple of these things come up that made me start to question spirituality, our full potential. And I remember talking to a therapist back in 2006 that I was afraid of my power because I have a role to play in lifting the consciousness of the planet. And I was like, she said that. But that's actually what's happening with this coaching is like you're getting to a higher version of you, and then you can change everything. So that's kind of been the path. That's
big. Does it feel big? Does it feel heavy? Or does it feel empowering?
Not as much as it used to anymore. It's nice I love having these conversations because lately I've been really tapped into kind of the business stuff, and the next evolution of me is really the external marketing version of me, right?
Yeah.
That's the next version that's going to grow that I'm building. So that's getting a lot of my attention right now. But the past 6 months has really caused me to realize that I always had a little bit of fear in my motivation in the past.
Mm.
So even when the business 10x and then tripled the next year, and there was a little fear in there. And I realized this past 6 months was the process of me grounding myself and aligned with myself, confident, happy, loved, so that I can really build the foundation. So now that foundation is built. Now we're starting to take off. So that's this phase.
Good for you. Fear's a big one. We all have it in one capacity or another.
Absolutely.
Even the fear of being, wildly successful, sometimes that is very fear-based for a lot of us is, what if I actually did hit that impossible target?
Yeah.
Then what?
Exactly.
Wow. Then what would I do with myself? So, Jason, this has been such a pleasure. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to make sure you communicate out with our listeners?
No, that was it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. I will link everything in the show notes. Your book is truly impactful. I love your approach, to alignment. I've read your book twice. I'm going to go back and reread your book again. I think everyone, including entrepreneurs in particular, we really could benefit from your approach and your wisdom. So thank you for taking the time to share it. I appreciate it, especially on a Monday morning.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite.
Great. Stay in touch. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the House of Jermar podcast, where wellness starts within. We appreciate you being a part of our community and hope you felt inspired and motivated by our guest. If you enjoyed this episode, please write us a review and share it with friends. Building our reach on YouTube and Apple Podcasts will help us get closer to our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. You can also follow us on Instagram at House of Jermar, and sign up to be a part of our monthly inspiration newsletter through our website, houseofjermar.com. If you or someone you know would be a good guest on the show, please reach out to us at podcast@houseofjermar.com. This has been a House of Jermar production with your host, Jean Collins. Thank you for joining our house.